My name is Sanna Vehvila and I'm a professor of career counseling, an interaction researcher, and a trainer of supervisors and teachers. I will talk about the elements of good supervision and good supervision interaction. Supervising a PhD is a complex activity and many things need to be taken into account. A PhD dissertation is of course research, it's work, it's learning and developing expertise and identity. It's a study credit, but also a passage to new community and possibilities for participation. What should we do as supervisors to help this process to be a successful and meaningful one? When we ourselves were supervised, we perhaps learned that the traditional ways of the master-apprentice model, the master gave directions and advice, reacted to our work when something was wrong, and they were the sole authority for our work. In the light of university pedagogical research, there are many more ways in which the supervisor can be useful for the PhD student's learning. Supervision is in general the guiding, leading and supporting of a PhD student in becoming a researcher and a member of the research community. To make a concise point about a complex issue, I will approach the activity of supervision via three metaphors. They are the path, the environment, and the space. The points I will be making are useful for a novice supervisor, but also good points for reflection for someone with a lot of experience in supervision. I will now talk about supervision via the metaphor of path. The other two metaphors will be discussed in other videos. The path refers to the length of time we travel together, the learning process, and the way this is embedded in the phases and activities of the research work in the scholarly community. But how do you supervise someone's travel? Is it enough that they get to the destination, accomplish a PhD, produce good quality research, or should they get there fast and efficiently? Or what if the main point is that they learn how to travel, love and appreciate the trip, they learn how to read the map, plan further trips, find their way, and take on board others too. They become part of the travelers' community and find their personal way of being travelers. When this is what we aim for, we say that we support the agency of the student. In many theories of supervision and guidance, strong agency is often viewed as the most fruitful goal for supervision. So when students have strong agency, not only do they have skills and produce results, but they have an active, responsible, engaged relationship with research. They trust themselves, but also know when to join forces with others. They have a sense of belonging to a community, and they have clarity of values behind their work. This means that as supervisors, we do not only supervise the product, but also the process. We do not concern ourselves only on what counts as a good PhD, as a piece of research, but we also make it our business to facilitate learning, professional growth, and participation of this particular student. And next I will give you 4 points that will help you in this endeavor. It would be a good idea for you to discuss these points with your PhD student and your colleagues. Or maybe, if you are a novice supervisor, view them with a senior colleague. When the supervisor's main interest is their prestige, their main focus is on things that will enhance their or their group's reputation and prestige. Getting many students, getting talented students, co-authoring their best work. When their main interest is the dissertation or the product or the artifact, they are mostly concerned with the good quality of the work. And this motivates their supervisory interventions such as advice and feedback. When their interest is in the skill of the student, they of course pay attention to the thesis quality, but also try to understand how this particular student learns, how their skills develop, how they themselves view their process, what they consider their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, the supervisor is interested in the learning process as experienced by the student. Interest in the student's growth means that supervisor is also interested in how the student develops a relationship to the field and an identity as a researcher. The supervisor is interested in how research is linked to the student's values and goals and how they become a member in the research community. It's natural that the attention will shift along this span. It's typical that the focus is often on the dissertation as a piece of research, more towards the right of the picture, but in good supervision also the process of learning, the left side of the picture, is attended to. Often it's heard that feedback is the most important supervisory intervention, and this is true. Feedback is very necessary in developing skill and improving the product. But the most important tool for process supervision is to hear out what is in the mind of your PhD student, so to listen. The student's own goals and understandings mediate your supervisory interventions. If you don't get to know them, there is a risk that your feedback and other interventions will not be understood by the PhD student, or they will not enter their working process. Your students actually will hear your advice and feedback and comments and questions through their own perception of what they are doing and aiming for. Therefore, to be able to supervise well, you need to understand how your student thinks. To do this, you need to let them voice their concerns and thoughts. And for this, you need to use not only feedback, but questions that make room for the student's own processing and reflection. It's important when beginning your journey, exploring their motivation and engagement in the research work, why it matters to them, exploring their prior understandings, strengths, needs, and concerns. But it's also important when meeting them for supervision encounters, what's going on in their work, what concerns they have. When you let your students discuss their concerns and thereby grasp how they understand things, it's easier for you to choose your supervision interventions. For instance, when to give advice and feedback, when to step back and let them decide, when to just offer empathy, or when to give praise or validation. The PhD student needs both challenges and support to be able to grow and exceed themselves. They need to be able to take risks, sometimes fail, to be resilient, and try again to succeed. For this, they need an environment that will both challenge them and support them. They also need to feel safe and respected. A key to providing this environment is in the good, trusting relationship between the supervisor and the supervisee. This is something you can systematically build. We may call it the learning alliance. It is a relationship with the nature of a contract. We make a pact to work together. It entails a trustful and friendly manner of interaction. Both parties can feel safe to explore the issues that need to be explored. Another important thing is transparency. Very often, problems in the supervisory relationship stem from a lack of transparency. So you need clarity of rights and obligations, clarity about authorship and possible co-authorship, and importantly, there needs to be a sufficiently shared goal and aim. Usually, all parties that are working together on the PhD have some interests in the PhD research. These interests and aims need to be openly on the table and negotiated about. There also needs to be clarity about working methods and pace and ways to communicate. Negotiation and dialogue are the mode for partnership or cooperation. And if there are fractures to it, it's repairable. In general, alliance is something that is relived and maintained in our daily actions. When your journey together begins, take time in building the alliance or working relationship. Especially be sure you have a sufficient understanding of a shared goal. Don't take it for granted. Goals may change, And that is why it's so essential to establish an ongoing dialogue with your student. Be sure the following things are at the table: the PhD student's own goals, own aims, values, and understandings, the supervisor's aims and interests, and your shared goals. Learning goals: what competencies are meant to be developed? Are they supported in the process? PhD supervision takes place in the context of research activity, and research is heavily mediated by texts. Almost everything we do in research is communicated via textual artifacts. As senior researchers, we are used to this. We are used to the endless stream of reading, writing, drafting, but our students have only recently started to develop this skill, the academic literacy. So be sure to support this skill. Check on the resources, limitations, and needs, and be open about yours too. Create a system of checkups, but allow flexibility for spontaneity, because troubles often do not appear according to schedule. Establish working rules and check on them occasionally, and at times look back and evaluate your work so that you both learn what working methods are best for you too. And here's a summary of the key points once more. Listen to your student, in general and prior to your interventions. Let your student plan, evaluate, and negotiate whenever possible. Be open and overt about matters of importance. In addition to giving feedback, ask for feedback about your work together. And don't take mutual understanding for granted. Check it instead.